Music's always been sacred for me. Growing up, I had a lot of asthma, and sports were really tough for me, but music was always around. My mother says she sang to me from the time I was in her womb and every day after that. She always had music playing.
Blues, classical music, Italian love songs, flamenco, all types of influences.
My dad always had the CBC on.
I like to keep informed with world events, so I listen a lot to the CBC.
My family was in France for a while, and we moved to Montreal when I was 8 years old. I had a friend on my block whose dad was Jamaican and had a huge record collection. That's where I heard reggae for the first time. I heard soca, calypso, high life, Afrobeat, a lot of the amazing music of the African diaspora. When my friend and I first heard the early hip hop, we bugged out. We started b-boying together with some of the other kids in the neighborhood. We made a little crew. We'd put cardboard out on the sidewalk and we had fat laces. My mother enrolled me in some judo classes. It was my first exposure to Asian philosophy. Those two experiences were my first introduction into the study of movement that would change my life forever. Around then, my mom bought us this Casio keyboard. My sister and I used to sample things like crazy with it. Cats and dogs and burping and farting sounds. My dad had this classical guitar kicking around and I would spend hours just strumming away on it. My uncle Mario played alto saxophone and he let me try it in my nonna's garage. Boom! It was so loud. My nonna had an organ in her basement and my cousins and I used to hammer on that thing. My uncle Elio had a snare drum and he showed me some rolls. Those are some of my most vivid childhood memories. And then my parents' Techniques, tuner, turntable, tape deck. I used to wait with my fingers on the record and play buttons. Just wait for the song, and if it started out really good, then I would always record it. I would play those things until they wore out. My musical vision was born out of the clash between traditional music and the technologically driven underground music that I was in love with. It was the same sound that I'm still chasing today. Badass beats and beautiful melodies. My mother took me to a jazz man called Jeffrey May for lessons. He played congas, guitar, drums, piano, flutes, saxophones, and he sang too. He taught me his approach. He was like a Montessori school teacher. It was like playtime all the time. Those were some of the most thrilling experiences that I had. Learning how to jam with someone, learning how to play. He showed me how he played with sound, how he practiced. He taught me how to read music. But I was a bad student of music. Like nobody could tell me how to do it. I had to decide for myself. When I was 12, 13, the older kids in my school in Montreal used to throw parties. And I remember the first time I went to one. I just walked in. I walked right to the speakers and I just stood there in front of the subwoofer. I was just mesmerized. I think I spent all night there, just standing there, 3 feet from the subwoofer, just like feeling that bass on my chest. And it was just like, it blew my mind. And watching all the kids doing New Jack Swing moves, I love the sound and the feeling of bass. My family moved to Ottawa when I was in high school and I lost touch with dance. There was no internet back then and none of my new friends danced. I started skiing in martial arts, but I met a drummer called Stéphane Lefrançois. Stéphane and I spent 15 years learning music together. We had a band together in school. I started recording us with a 4-track. He was drumming and I would sing and play melodies and harmonies, but he was teaching me and I was teaching him. We learned to play congas and djembes. We learned to DJ together. We started playing parties. We learned to produce music together. I went to my first rave in 1993. I was 19 and I started dancing again. I felt like I was coming home. Started going to clubs and listening to house music. I played in a bunch of different bands for years, as a sideman, as a band leader. And then Stéphane and I applied for the Music Industry Arts program at Fanshawe College in London, Ontario. It's the oldest recording school in North America. My father drove us there 7.5 hours to go check the place out. They had 6,000 applicants that year for 60 spots. 1 in 100, we both got in. We played and recorded music non-stop for 2 whole years there. They had several beautiful studios. That's when I got the name Rise Ashen. It was about taking old sounds and lighting them on fire and flipping them and making them fresh. Later, I made 4 solo albums as Rise Ashen. In 1999, I was blessed to be invited by the Banff Centre for the Arts for a recording engineering internship. I got to work with some incredible musicians. I even followed a string quartet to Sweden and got to experience Scandinavia for a bit. I came back to Ottawa in 2000, and I met Rurik Podolsky and became part of the incredible Quad Squad dance crew. Ru, Bijnu, and Hamza, these guys were consummate artists. They taught me to steal everything, respect nothing, and honor no structure in art. I also met my Kung Fu teacher, Kim Hu Lee. He taught me how to train, and he taught me how to breathe. He beat me up for 5 years straight, killed my ego, and he taught me how to learn. He gave me the keys to unlock the power of the energy inside me. I kept working on music. I'm still working on music. I'm just trying to learn. I studied tabla for a few years from a teacher called Amolak Khosla. I got a weekly residency at the Mercury Lounge in 2001, and the Mercury Lounge became my home. I still DJ'd there, and I still DJ anywhere I can. up until the pandemic started. That's where I met my brother Trevor Walker. We made a lot of music together, and we still do. I got to work with a huge cross-section of Canadian DJs, and I got to meet international DJs like Louis Vega, Giles Peterson, Ocean Lade, Bodhisattva, and dozens of others as they brought their philosophy and their vision of music to the club. The Mercury Lounge was like our church, and we would have service and commune with the divine every Saturday night. I would get all the dancers together, and they would let us in around 10 p.m. when the doors were just opening. We warmed that place up. I got to meet Kahil El-Zabar, and I opened up for the Ethnic Heritage Ensemble of Chicago. Over the years, I've kept in touch with Kahil, and recently I've brought him down a few times to do shows. Kahil's been a huge inspiration for me. It's been amazing to get to learn from him. I'm working on an album with him now. I love to rock dance floors with house music from around the world. You can check out my Deep World mixes with some of my favorite dance music. I met my partner Tangent in 2004. She's a real dancer, disciplined. We started going to New York a lot to learn from some of the pioneers of house dance. Delving deeper into the dance and trying to understand it changed my whole perspective on music. My understanding of how New York was so instrumental in the music that I loved. I got to learn from some amazing dancers like Bravo LaFortune, Archie Burnett, Tone McGregor, Sekou, Khalif, Which Way Shannon, Ejo Wilson, and Future Ninja. And I even got to dance with Willie Ninja, Marjorie Smarth, and Tyrone Proctor before they passed. I started practicing yoga a lot when I realized it was at the root of Kung Fu. I met Devin Johnstone and Tara Porter, and they taught me about kirtan music. We started playing music for yoga classes as Bhavantu Collective. And I started DJing for yoga classes and festivals. Up until the pandemic started, we were still playing together every week at a yoga studio called Yoga Town on Preston Street. And Devin and I started training in parkour and art du déplacement. We learned about Georges Hébert's méthode naturelle, and we still train together a lot. I've worked with so many incredible artists in my life, and I really cherish all of their teachings. People like Amoy in Toronto, who I made a record with in 2012. Echo Deck in Guelph, who I've made several remixes for. Fred Everything in Montreal. And Miguel Grassa, who I've worked so much with and I've learned so much from. It was around this time that I started working with Balance Records, and I met Chasm and the Seed Organization, two kindred musical spirits. I fell in love with Indigenous music when I met my friend Flying Down Thunder, an Algonquin dancer and singer. I had no idea about Indigenous culture. He took me to powwows and round dances and up to his community, and he taught me about his ancestral dance, music, and culture that have been here since time immemorial. I got to see the world from his perspective. I learned a lot about the history of this place. I feel moved to collaborate with Indigenous artists, to contribute in whatever small way I can to creating connections and bonds between our communities and breaking down barriers. I lost a lot of my Canadian identity in the process, but I was blessed to start to scratch the surface of understanding the beauty of Indigenous cultures. I discovered that I want to do what I can to bring shared experiences and unity to different groups of people through the power of music. In 2012, Flying Down Thunder and Rise Ashen got a Juno Award nomination for our album, One Nation. We went on a tour of China in 2013, and we made a pilgrimage to Shaolin Temple. That was one of the highlights of my life, getting to walk through those temples and breathe the mountain air in the place where the whole story of Chinese martial arts began. I met my Inuit friends Cynthia and Charlotte around then. Their ensemble is called Sila. In 2015, we started blending their traditional Inuit throat singing, Katajak, with my beats. People like it when we play together, and we have a lot of fun. We blur the lines between ancestral and futuristic music. We got a Juno nomination for our debut album in 2017, and a second Juno nomination for our follow-up album, Galactic Gala. In 2016, I started filming and recording some conversations I was having with some of the artists I know. I call the show Gone Monk. It's beautiful to be able to go deep with some of the incredible artists I know about their journey into art. Check it out at gonemonk.com. For the last 12 years, my partner Tangent and I have been running Capital Sessions, our forum for sharing our love of house dance, music, and culture with our community. Over the years, we've brought in dozens of DJs and dancers to share their vision of art with our community right here in Ottawa. I'm the father to 2 children now, and watching them make sense of the world, I've come to realize that the learning of art is the same as the learning of any knowledge. It's all the same process. The more you practice it, the more sense it makes. The more you learn how others do things, the more that informs your practice, the more free you become. So that's why now I just say I'm a student of music and a student of movement. And movement is the language of art in general. It's the language of life. Whether you dance with your body or you dance with your fingers on an instrument, whether your canvas is clay or sheet music or pavement, all artists are dancing and all artists are learning, whether they're playing or writing or singing, dancing. I hope you enjoy the music. I'm 46 years old and I'm just getting warmed up here with this music and dance thing. I'll see you on the dance floor. Thanks for listening to my story.